Hi, I'm John Hawley with Purdue University Extension, and this is a Nature of Teaching program food waste curriculum lesson. The What a Waste of Food portion of the lesson, and this is lesson number 3, Waste Not, Want Not. This is a really great lesson for if you've ever walked in the grocery store and you've ever been curious about, well, this milk says sell by, or this apple says best buy, or this package of salad says use by. This is a great lesson for interpreting expiration dates, labels, and other things we see on food at the grocery store. And it's a great way to teach your students about that. But at the same time, as someone who's taught this lesson personally, I can tell you right now, this lesson is going to teach you a lot, just like it's going to teach your students. So to get started, this is a approximately 1 hour lesson, so plan wisely. If you need to, you can probably break it up into 2 different class periods, just depending on how your teaching curriculum works. And as I mentioned, this lesson teaches students how to accurately, determine and understand expiration dates, best buy dates, how to properly store food when they take it home, and how to use older foods for, byproducts and things like that. There's 3 important vocabulary terms you'll want to consider for this lesson. The first is manufacturer, that being a person or a company that produces packaged food to sell. Expiration date is the next term, the date after which a food should not be sold or consumed. And then lastly, perishable food, food that needs to be cooked or frozen within a certain amount of time to prevent spoiling. All of those terms and additional guidelines can be found on page 5 of your teacher's notes. So the required materials for this lesson are pretty simple. The very first thing you'll want is to make sure all of your students have a food journal and a usable utensil like a pencil, pen, or a marker. You'll want to give them one best if used chart, right here, one best if used worksheet, just like this, and then one food storage worksheet. They're going to be working through this throughout the lesson plan. So to start out, the actual procedure can be found on page 20 of your teaching guide for the What a Waste of Food lesson plan. Ask the students about those terms. Ask them if they understand what a manufacturer is, what expiration dates really mean, and what does perishable food really mean. They may understand the pretty simple or simple differences between a canned food lasting longer versus a fresh food, but really dive into what you already understand and what your teacher's notes provide you as a resource for food waste. Teach the students those tips for food safety mentioned on page 5 of the teaching guide. So a few different things you'll want to mention are look, sniff, and taste. These are great ways to instruct your students on how to understand if food goes bad. So for instance, if you've got a gallon of milk at home, it's a few days past the sell-by date, take a smell of that milk. Teach your students, if it doesn't smell sour, taste a little bit to their tongue. That's the taste portion. And if you don't see it looking chunky or maybe turning a little bit off yellow, that milk's probably still good for a few days, especially if you want to make something like a homemade yogurt or a smoothie, but even a bowl of cereal. That works just fine. That's a great method that I use for milk all of the time. It's a great one I've heard other teachers using as well. So the look, sniff, taste are really big pieces of advice to use, but also instruct your students that food can still become unsafe before that expiration date. If it wasn't stored properly, perhaps your students had some fish at home. They cooked some fish and they left it out on the counter too long. Even if you put it back in the fridge and kept it chilled, that food may be expired. Look, sniff, and taste. With fish, you can probably smell it pretty easily when it goes bad. And then you've got really another neat little sub-activity you could consider found at the bottom of page 5. Tell them how to determine whether eggs are still good. So, if your eggs float when put in a bowl of water, that indicates they're old and ready to be thrown out. So just a good example of teaching your students how to determine the quality of their food. So actually going into the lesson now, give each student that best if used chart and a best if used worksheet. Have them fill out the worksheet based on the chart. Explain to the students how we can reduce food waste. Give them tips from your own personal life so it seems more realistic, so it seems more understandable. Tell them, hey, only buy what you need when you go to the grocery store. And then really dig in and make an appeal to their ethics by explaining that the average family in the United States wastes $589.76 worth of food every year. Have them write that in their food journal as a very impactful note that they'll hopefully take home and share with their parents. Teach students how to store food properly. Those suggestions are also listed in your teacher's notes, so keep that in mind. and then have them write some additional notes in their food journal as they go along as you talk about that part of the lesson. Additionally, if you've got 3rd or 5th grade students, so you're teaching above that kindergarten through 2nd grade level, guide the students through the food waste adds up activity towards the bottom of page 20. It's got some additional math problems and well, not so much a math problem, but a scenario for students to better understand how to save money, but also waste less food at the end. And then after completing that activity, ask the students follow-up questions such as, would you want to give up your allowance for 5 whole years? What else would you rather do with that money? Really breaking down that very striking statistic on food waste. And then ask them if that helps them see one reason why they don't want to waste food. And then explain to your students, we can use a lot of foods that are getting older. Using bananas, for instance, that are overripe. They're great for smoothies, or maybe even muffins. Bring home some bananas from home that have gone a little too far out on the counter. And then ask students for other ways that they can prevent food waste at home. Maybe they've noticed mom or dad buys a lot of extra apples that go bad. Tell them they can make applesauce with that. Tell them to find recipes online or maybe at their local county extension office to learn more about how to make that actual applesauce and prevent the waste of those apples. Or tell them, hey, when we go to the grocery store, mom or dad, the average family wastes almost $600 worth of food a year. Don't grab 10 apples, let's just get 5. Good example of how to really drive this message home for the students as they go into their own homes. And then lastly, make sure that all of those notes and all those suggestions are written down in their personal food journals that often get brought home and read to mom and dad or grandma and grandpa. And then lastly, review with students what they learned today and about how to interpret those expiration dates. How and why to properly store food, whether it's in the refrigerator or in the pantry. The best if used chart and the food storage worksheet are just a few examples of very relevant foods that the students are bound to find at home, and it's going to really be a better understanding for them. They go home and they learn what you as the teacher taught them, and they can see the products in the pantry at home with mom and dad. And then lastly, how to use those older foods and how to make better food byproducts, like I've already mentioned the examples of applesauce, smoothies, etc. So this has been lesson number 3 in the What a Waste of Food Nature of Teaching program, Waste Not, Want Not. Once again, my name is John Hawley with Purdue University Extension, and I certainly hope that you enjoyed this detailed lesson plan. If you have any questions or concerns, please leave us a message in the comments below or get in touch with your local county extension educator. Thank you so much for watching.